Hey everybody, thanks for joining Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thanks so much. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I know tonight's a late night, but Andrea and George were on a talk show earlier, and I wanted to make sure I had them on the show tonight. They are my special guests tonight. I'm so honored to have Andrea and George on the same time tonight on my show. Andrea Perron. Now, all those who... Oh, okay, hold on for a second, everybody. Hold on.
Okay.
Andrea Perron and George Lopez have written a novel together, and it is called In a Flicker, and it is getting amazing reviews. But I know Andrea has other stuff to talk about as well tonight. And so let me bring on Andrea. Hold on, everybody. Welcome, Andrea and George.
Hi, honey.
Andrea and George, now they've written a novel together in a flicker. But I got a message from Sweet Annie that she has stuff to tell us. And you know what that means. So, okay, Annie, tell us. I know you're chomping at the bit to tell us a lot of news. What's going on?
Well, last week or the week before, I can't remember because they all blend together, I made a trip out west and had some sit-down, serious meetings with a producer, a director, and a screenwriter, who I've been working with now for several months, kind of preparing the ground for them in terms of my trilogy. And we are in the process now of putting together a screenplay for House of Darkness, House of Light, which is going to become, according to them, 3 major motion pictures, a trilogy of pictures that matches the trilogy of books. So my greatest wish in life is going to be fulfilled in that I wanted our true story out there, because you know as well as I do that The Conjuring is really no reflection of our story at all. It's a piece of Hollywood fiction for the most part. There are elements of it that are true, but overall, it doesn't really capture the essence of our story. Well, while I'm out there, I was telling these very talented, very powerful people about the new book, In a Flicker, and made sure that I brought some extra copies with me, which all of them gobbled up as though they were ravenous creatures, and they have since read them and would like an exclusive on that as well.
They're going to make a movie out of In a Flicker?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Really?
I know.
Oh,
yes,
my God.
We haven't shared that with anybody anywhere, Noreen. You get the scoop on that. We haven't signed any contracts yet. We're taking our time. We're making sure that we've got just the right production company and just the right fit. And all of that will fall into place as it should, in the same way that the book fell into place. Precisely the way it should, in its right and proper time. So I don't feel any tension or pressure about it. I already see it running as a film in my head. I think it's going to be a blockbuster, phenomenal film. And I'm so excited. I mean, when you think about it, this book has been out in the world for just over a month, and already we have offers.
Oh, well, the reviews of the book are unbelievable. They're absolutely amazing. Everybody loves this book, and by the way, I'm going to buy it. I started reading the first 14 pages that was on the web, but I wasn't able to finish them, and I am going to buy the book, because the last time when I hosted your radio show with you and George, The World Awakening, and after the show, you told me about what the book was about, and I couldn't believe it. It was And I won't tell anybody, but it's absolutely amazing. The story is phenomenal. George, how would you tell the viewers how you came up with the story?
And by the way, the reason why I don't have video on my Skype tonight is, since the whole aspect of the book and a flicker being turned into a motion picture, I just, I'm in my motion picture studio trailer right now that the producers were kind enough to put in my backyard, and I just don't want to brag about it just yet. So that's that.
Oh, you don't want to brag about it?
Oh, no.
Why?
I'm a very, meager individual, so I don't want to get into it. All right.
George, tell the viewers.
As regards to how this story came about 25 years ago, that it just entered my brain, is I guess the best way to put it. Cosmic forces. Noreen, we try to figure out why people are creative, why they are able to do the things that they do, whether it's with music, poetry, sculpting, painting. It just is something that is given to you, I think, as a gift from God. And I think this one was a gift from the cosmos. And I think it was kind of premature in a sense, almost as if they said, give it in, but wait, because what we're going to set him up with is a very talented, creative writer by the name of Andrea Perron, but she's got things that she's still going on into. She's in her life. So let's set it up for 2013 or 2014, and let's put them together then and create this story. But the story developed in my mind 25 years ago. It didn't develop over 25 years. I had it from start to finish back then. And then, of course, bringing it to the forefront and explaining it to Andrea one night in a late night conversation we had over the phone, and it impacted her emotionally to such a degree as it did when we told you the story. And of all of our readers, the reactions from our readers have been absolutely astounding and almost cookie cutter in a sense, which is what I was hoping to achieve, is that everyone who's been reading this book has been so impacted, haunted, startled, overjoyed, the emotional roller coaster about it, but every single one of them have almost come back when we've done a little bit of a Q&A, when they're done with the book, and they'll make contact, or Andrew and myself, and we start picking the brain and saying, what was it that affected you? What really was the standout for you in this story? And they said it just took every last bit of emotion out of me. It drained me from the laughter to the sorrow to the shock, and I didn't know which way it was going next. And that is a blanket statement for almost every single reader that we have had respond back to us so far. So mission accomplished.
Wow, that's congratulations to you, and you and Andrea have a mind that is just the two of you together are unbelievable. I've heard you speak at conferences. I've watched some of your conferences on YouTube, and the two of you are just unbelievable together, and you are so lucky, the both of you, to have what you have. And it's an honor for me to know both of you. It's just an honor. And so, and Andrea, honey, now they're going to make a movie out of the real story, your real story.
Yes, what we're doing right now is the fundamentals on a screenplay for Volume 1. I am also working separately with my producer, Les Anderson, to introduce a documentary about our stories first. And we're hoping to premiere that at the Sundance Film Festival next year.
Oh my God.
That's what we're working on right now. And, fortunately, he's close by to me, not too far south from where George is. So I'm about 90 minutes away from these two very important men in my life. But I will say, though, that I have never in my lifetime known anyone like George. And I think that it was interesting that you just made a comment about our mind as though it was a shared mind. And I think that was very accurate and erudite on your part, because when we did this project together, It was as though our two individual minds literally melded, and it wasn't always comfortable, and it wasn't always easy. There were many difficult hurdles that we had to overcome, and I think that in the process of it, as close as we were before, I think that we're infinitely closer now, because we have created, literally birthed this magnificent child into the world. And it's been my honor and my pleasure to work alongside him most of the time. We fought like cats and dogs never fought the way that we fought doing this book. But there was always one common denominator: what was best for the reader, what was best for the story. I was trying to bring a certain beauty to the story, to soften its hard edges. And when you read it, Noreen, you'll understand exactly what I'm saying to you. And George kept saying one word over and over again: no, it's got to be this way. This is the way that it's got to be. There was that female, a lot of people are saying that we wrote it as if we had one voice, even though we're two very separate, distinct individuals. His writing style was so similar to my own that it was a true melding of the minds, and yet there was that softness and that feminine perspective that I wanted to bring to the story, and he had that harder masculine perspective that he knew it had to be, and I had to acquiesce, Noreen, because ultimately it was George's story. I was just gestating it for him, but it was his story, and he knew, and he was right. It is exactly, precisely what it's supposed to be in its final incarnation now, and it's out into the world. And we just did another interview prior to coming on with you, and I said to the host during that interview, I'm as proud of Flicker than I am of the trilogy, and that's saying a lot, because to write that trilogy, very well, I had to open a vein, and it was probably the hardest thing that I had ever done in my life. And In a Flicker was harder. It was more difficult, even though it took considerably less time, because it was one volume instead of three, and it was two of us working on it instead of just myself working as a solitary author. It opened up parts of me that I didn't even know existed. It opened up compartments in my mind that I didn't know were there. And in a way, I communed with George to write this. We worked countless hours on this manuscript. Every detail, every little tiny piece of minutia. We shot for perfection. And people, the readers will say, and George will attest to this, I'll let him tell you about some of the reviews that we've gotten, but so many people who have already read this book, and it's only been out in the world a few weeks, are writing to us saying, I'm never going to think about anything the same way again. This blew my mind wide open. This made a shift in me. I will never forget these characters. They became a part of me. I became a part of this story. I have never read anything like this in my life. And the very finest comment, in my opinion, that we have received thus far is from a woman that we both know well, who did proofreading for us on this. And when she was done, she Skyped us. It was in the middle of the night. I think it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and she's out west, so like you. So, but George and I, of course, were up working on the book, and there she is on Skype with the tears pouring down her face. And she said, it's as if it was written by a higher intelligence, as if you just channeled it. Oh, she was absolutely blown away. She said she is haunted by these characters. She'll be doing something as mundane as standing at the kitchen sink doing dishes. And it's as if she gets tapped on the shoulder. They're still there. They're still a part of her. And she said, and this was weeks and weeks ago, months ago actually, when she started doing the overview, the read through as an edit for us to see if we had screwed anything up or whatever. And she said, do not change a word of this. And all these months later, she's still saying, they're still with me. I dream about them. They're part of my life now. I will never forget these characters for the rest of my life. And we've heard it over and over and over again, huh, George?
Yeah, it was absolutely the most enjoyable sound to my ears, hearing them talk about how tortured they are over this story.
So, George, you carried this with you for 25 years. Were you putting this in writing as this came to you? How long did it take to come to you? Did it just all of a sudden, all this came to you in a couple of days or at once, or was this over time?
All at once, Noreen. The bizarre thing about it, let me bring you up to present time as an example. The second book, In a Flicker 2, was something that's been in my mind for quite some time, and trying to decide which character from the first book I was going to utilize for the second book. And as I'm going through it in my mind, I'm hitting one blockade after another, one obstacle after another. I wasn't satisfied. That was me trying to figure this out. Sleepless nights, trying to decipher what exactly I was going to do. How was I going to top the first book? And then suddenly, laying in bed one night, it all came to me. All of it, when I mean all of it, Noreen, I wrote the entire story, the entire outline of book 2 in an hour and 40 minutes. Oh. Then I woke up Andrea and I woke up Nikki, and I told them both the story at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh. And both of them obviously were sleeping in one way, but they both happened to get up at the same time. This is the thing that I always kind of connect back to what we do in the paranormal community, what I've been doing for the last decade plus, what Andrea has been as a survivor back in the 1970s, all the way up to being a lecturer, all the way up to being a radio show host, and of course being a writer, is that the cosmic forces that connect all of us in one way, shape, or form have created this. It created this 25 years ago in me, and then it just lay dormant until the timing was absolutely right to collaborate, make an amalgamation with the talents, the creative genius known as Andrea Perron, along with this emotional story that, again, has just been impacting everyone from our proofreaders all the way through, and including every single person that's reading that book right now that are sending messages while they're going through it, going, oh my God, I just reached chapter 4. Oh my God, I just reached chapter 16. And they are just blown away, 100% blown away by how this is being told. I don't think I wrote this. I don't think Andrea wrote this. I think we were vessels for a story that needed to be told, long overdue, but it needed to be at the right time. And I don't know whether or not it's because of where we are in our world right now that this escapism was necessary, where we are in the world right now that the emotional roller coaster that this book provides is somewhat of an outlet for our readers, but they connect to it, they hold on to it, it haunts them. And as I said before, when people are sending me the notification that they just got their book, they just got in a Flickr, it just came in the mail, or they just downloaded it, just now on innaflickr.com this week, we included the PayPal. So you can order an autographed copy of this book from both Andrea and I just by the click of a button on the Flickr fan or the Flickr website, innaflickr.com.
Oh yeah. I'm showing a picture. I'm showing a picture of your website, and I have the website up for them.
Thank you, honey.
But my response every time I get that first notification that they received the book is, your pain is my pleasure.
Wow, George, because I know some of the story from that night that you told me, and what and the character. Did you have to do any research as well for your book?
Oh, hours, days, weeks, months.
Really?
Because the content is primarily history based on several different levels, but primarily one section that one specific part of history, and I had to make sure, because it's such a well-known part of history, that I was getting all of the details correct, and with the help of some fantastic people such as Len Miller and Mike Covell, who is from England, Nikki Salach, who is British, so we have colloquialisms involved with it also, but people who are just really knowledgeable in some of the aspects of this story, that I was able to tap into their minds. But most of it was done by good old Google and getting every nuance of it. And so in doing so, with a lot of this, I had to immerse myself into what transpired in this historical timeline. I had to put myself into that environment. And a lot of the questions that we've gotten over time from our readers is are these characters, the main character and the supporting characters, are they part of who you are? And it's one of those double-edged swords. It's a part of who I am, but only in the sense of who I am as a movie fanatic, as a story fanatic, that I needed to make sure that these characters were interesting to me, and exciting to me, and funny to me, and dramatic to me, and witty to me, and all those different things. I needed to make sure that this is a story that was going to captivate my senses, going to captivate my emotions, going to captivate my interests, and then wrap all of that, Maureen, around a tremendous message that was so necessary, and then so eloquently painted by Andrea Perron in this story, that it's unforgettable, absolutely unforgettable for anyone who's read it so far. It's been, again, as I said, an umbrella statement. I'm haunted, is the words.
Are you going to tell the viewers anything about the book, or a little piece about it, or wet their whistle?
It's no.
Okay.
Noreen, if I could answer that for you, no. But there's a reason why.
Okay.
This story is so it's a tapestry, and every single thread interwoven with every other thread. If you pull even one thread out and expose it, it will unravel it. It will, in a sense, spoil it for the reader. And I know you follow my wall and my website, you watch me like a hawk woman. I watch you too. I love you so much. And, we just great supporters of one another. And so I know that you have seen me post over and over again, don't spill the beans, don't spoil the mystery.
Yes.
Because, this is the kind of story that if you say much of anything, you've said too much. You've given away an element of the story that you don't want to rob from the fresh eyes of a new reader. And so we have had to tiptoe through the tulips. In fact, I said to George, we're going to be lecturing about this book in the coming months. And I said, George, what the hell are we supposed to do? Take our audience and split them in half, and you take the ones that haven't read it yet, and I take the ones that have? Because we can't talk to them all at once. We can't. We can't put ourselves in a situation where we're in a room lecturing to people, some of whom have read it and some haven't, and then answer their questions. We can't. So it's a real conundrum for us. And I can't think of any other book in history that this is true of. And you know me, I'm a voracious reader. I've read countless thousands of books over the course of my life. I have never read a story like this in my life. And it is, I think it's just the best crafted, best constructed story. And I can say that because I took what George gave me and turned what ran as a screenplay in his mind into a novel. So, as I said on our earlier interview, there are elements of this story that are truly ugly, and yet just through the literature, I tried to bring a certain beauty to the text. And everyone who has read it thus far that I know of said that we accomplished our goal, that it is a perfect, pure labor of love, a true labor of love, an amalgamation of masculine and feminine energy, that it's fact, it's fiction, it's historical drama, it's psychological drama, it's mystery, it's got a wicked supernatural twist to it. I mean,
Yes.
It's everything all wrapped up in one thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I really couldn't be more proud of what we have accomplished together. It is something that we cannot share too much about, Noreen, because then in that way, it's like giving someone a gift but unwrapping it for them. Do you understand?
Oh, yes. When you told me that night, I could not believe it.
No.
I could not believe that somebody could come up with that. I couldn't believe it. It's
I know. George is brilliant, and I don't care that he's sitting right here in my little box on my Skype. I'll say it to his face. I have many times. George is brilliant, and I could never have come up with this idea on my own. This comes from the amazing mind of George Lopez.
Yeah.
And yes, I brought my writing ability. I added about 150 pages of text to this book. I did make my contribution to this. I filled the story out in many ways. I did a lot of the description. I worked with him very closely to make sure that we got the dialogue between the characters absolutely perfect. We could not have been more meticulous in our treatment of this work. But the reason that we were is because both of us are perfectionists, and we wanted to put a perfect story out into the world. And we spared no. It was really weird too, and he told you the truth about that when he came up with the idea for volume 2. I was sound asleep, and I woke bolt upright in bed, got up out of my bed, came to my office, sat in front of my computer, opened up Facebook, and as soon as I did, up pops in our private message feed, "You up?" I'm like, "I am now." Skype now. Skype now.
Wow.
And when I get Skype now from George, I take that very seriously, because that means he's got something important to tell me. But before I let him go on again about what an incredibly good writer I am, I would like to say that, after he shared this story with me originally, Noreen, I told him, I said, "You have got to write this down. You have to write this down." And he said, "I'm not a writer." I said, "I am. I will do anything. I will move heaven and earth, because I want this story out into the world. It has to go out into the world." I was adamant with him. Nobody tells George Lopez what to do, ever. And yet I took that upon myself to insist that he turn his life upside down, make huge sacrifices, spend countless hours in front of his computer screen until his eyes were bleeding, and then turn the work over to me and let me run with it. And that's how we did it. And then after I was done running with it, I sent it back to him. He'd go, "No, I hate this. Yes, we're keeping that." I would cry. He would yell. We would, oh my God, you have no idea the emotional turmoil that both of us went through. You can see it in every page. You can read it between the lines. This was not easy, in the same way that enlightenment is difficult. It's not all kumbaya. There was a work process involved here. But for me, As a woman, the message of this story was what compelled me to put everything in my life on hold to make sure that this book went out into the world. And I am telling you honestly, as my friend, from inception, from conception of we're going to write a book together to release, 18 months. Our publisher moved heaven and earth to get this book out in time for us to premiere it at the Undead Con in New Orleans with Anne Rice over Halloween weekend. From start to finish, from submission to completion to in our hands, less than 2 weeks. That never happens in the publishing world. But when I submitted the manuscript to them, because I wanted to use the publisher that I did my books with, because I love them, and they know me so well, and I know them so well, and I know their process so well, I submitted the manuscript, and I said, listen, this is really some extreme stuff, and I don't know if you folks are even going to be willing to publish this or not, and I would appreciate it if you would run the manuscript past your review board before we sign a contract, because this is kind of out there and probably not what you're used to. And within 24 hours, I was with George when it happened. I got an email from the owner of the company that said 3 words, "Oh my God." And the man who runs the review board, the review committee of manuscripts at the publishing house, walked into his office and said, call her and get a contract on this book right now.
God.
Get them on board right now before they change their mind. This book is excellent. And my book consultant said she just kind of fell back in her chair because she said, I've worked with this man for decades and I have never heard that word come out of his mouth before, not once.
You know, it's amazing how all this, the timing. Now, when did you start writing this book?
Well, when was it, George? It was, well, I guess now about 20 months ago, because it's been out a month.
Okay, that long ago. But George, you've known Andrea for some time. Why did you just 20 months ago tell her about it?
I was whining.
We were on somewhat of a roller coaster ride already. This, just happening, our meeting right after the release of The Conjuring. And she was on for all aspects, a whirlwind tour. I mean, between television interviews and radio show interviews, and then once we got rolling right along with World Awakening, that became our focus and attention. And love doing the show every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. We have our tribe that comes and listens to us. Some of them are in your chat right now here on the YouTube page. We have a great time doing it, but there was a moment now for Andrea that there was she was lost.
You can tell it, George. You can tell the whole thing.
Yeah, 7 years of committing her life, every waking moment, to writing this trilogy, House of Darkness, House of Light, volumes 1, 2, and 3, and just to the point in time where it became, the biggest portion of who she was, and who she was not only when she was right there in front of the computer writing it, and then working through with the publisher and publishing it and honing it to such perfection. She was talking about it, whether it's on the internet or whether it's in person, lecturing, all these different things. But there seemed to be an emptiness. And there was a point in time in one of our road trips where she actually confessed that she did not see a future. She could not see herself living any further. And not in a suicidal tendency kind of thing, but just a void in her life. And that's when I brought that to her attention, that, if anything was going to not necessarily save her, but give her that juice back that she needed, that fire that she needed again, it was to get back to what she loves most to do and what she does best, which is writing. Right. So bringing this to her attention was almost just a side notion. I wasn't there to be a savior or anything. I said, well, what about this? And then she just grabbed and said, oh, we got to do this. We got to do this like now. And it took me about 7 months to present her with the raw manuscript fully. About 6 months or 5 months in, I started giving her the first sections of it, just so she could just jump on it and get into it. But it was I guess it's kind of saved both of us in a sense. But I really think that for her, it got the energy going back again for not only that, but now she's writing screenplays. Now she's got, an addendum to the trilogy that she's been wanting to work on for the longest time with the publisher. She'll get into that and probably a few other things since she's gotten so fascinated and back into really ufology. She had the experiences, but she never really talked about it. But now she's in a comfortable position to really address it, and she's done some wonderful lectures at some of the UFO conventions. So she may be doing some writings about that also. But it just kind of said that the trilogy was not the end of Andrea Perron or the end of Andrea Perron's writing capabilities. It was really kind of the get-go, and she could let go from the get-go and go in any direction she wanted to. She could write, and I think this story proves it, she could write anything that she wants to. This was something that she was mostly fearful of people who had read the trilogy going, this is not an Andrea that I expected. And by time the responses began, and by the way, the thing that you had asked earlier, as to whether or not we reveal anything, when I said no, that was an intuition at the beginning. Before it actually came out into the world, while we were still writing it and doing interviews about it, and people were asking, well, can you tell us anything about it? And I said, no, that was a gut instinct. Now it's advice from our readers.
Oh,
they
yeah.
come back to us and go, you cannot let anybody know about this. I could not have enjoyed this ride. I could not have experienced what I experienced in this book if you had given anything away. So now we listen to the advice of the readers who have already picked this up and have given us some incredible feedback. But, again, this gives Andrea another level or another depth, however you want to look at it, for her writing future. What she wants to go after, she could go after, whether it's fiction or whether it's fact, whether it's history or whether it's future premonitions. She can go in any direction that she wants to. And as for me, as I said, I already outlined book 2. That's going to be my first solo endeavor, so that hopefully I could get at least remotely close to the respect and to the capabilities as a writer as Andrea has done with the trilogy by going solo. And it's scary. It's certainly scary, and I guarantee you I'll be again Skyping with Andrea going, I'm not sure about this, what do you think? And she may rip it apart in some parts, which is probably going to be a building block for me to do better on that too. But book 2, and again, we just out 5-6 weeks on book 1, and the response has been tremendous.
Oh,
but that's
yeah.
the question that comes up with our readers.
Oh, yeah. I'm seeing that all over. That
Yes.
the reviews are absolutely amazing, and I can totally understand that, knowing some of the story myself about the book. I can't wait to read it. I like I said, when you told me part of the story, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that anybody could come up with something like that. Yeah, it's amazing, everybody. This book is amazing.
You again only got the Reader's Digest version, even though it probably took about 45 minutes to tell you the story from start to finish. But you have not yet to experience the nuances. You have not experienced the minute detail that's involved in this. And same situation again. I can't go into what that minute detail is. I will tell you again from the character development parts of this is that I needed to pick the brains of those who were our proofreaders, Nikki Salach and Sue Darnell, and then a lot of our wonderful tribe, and then people since then, the extended family of our World Awakening show that we've talked to, and the readers who've gotten a hold of this book, and really needed to find out whether or not we succeeded with the character development. From the main character Ethan to his buddy Colin to Maggie to even Arthur, we needed to find out where we succeeded and where we failed, and I think we exceeded the expectations because I'm getting hate mail.
Hate mail? No.
Yeah. Andrea?
Yeah, yeah, and I deflect all of it away from me to him with one sentence. It was George's idea. He made me do it.
Hate mail? You're kidding.
Yeah.
Oh.
I tell people just to make sure that they get the softbound edition so that when they heave it against a wall, it bounces and it doesn't break the binding.
Oh my God. Well, you know what? My advice is for everybody to get the soft. I would not sit and read it on Kindle, on the internet. Get into bed and just relax and read this book, because you'll probably read it, what, in 1 day, day and a half at the most?
It takes about 3.
3 days?
422 pages. Yeah.
And from what I understand, once you start reading, you can't put it down.
We've already had people write to us. I had one woman who wrote to me and she said, my husband thought that I was going to divorce him because for 3 days I fell off the planet. I wouldn't cook, I wouldn't clean, I wouldn't do anything with him. And she said she even called out of work sick. So she didn't have to put the book down.
Oh my God, I can believe it.
And then when he came to her practically in tears and said, what have I done? She handed him the book. She said, it's your turn.
Oh my God. Did he read it?
Yep.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. But it's worth reading the pages rather than on the internet.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There's nothing like having hardbound or softbound. It doesn't matter. There is nothing like having a book in your hand, the feel of the page, the sensual turning of each page, the wanting to know what comes next, letting your eyes slip, just like reading sheet music at a piano when the page turns. There's something creative in the endeavor of reading as there is creative in the endeavor of writing.
When I was talking about hate mail, in a flicker, and again, when you're talking about having a book rather than the ebook version of it, again, in a flickernovel.com, go to the order your copy page, scroll all the way down, whether you want to order it through mail, Andrea's post office box is there, or you want to simply just hit the PayPal, and you guys can get the book autographed by Andrea and I. But the hate mail comes from the aspect of the detailed work on the characters, that the investment that these readers have put into these characters are at such a level that, and of course I'm not going to simply give them on a platter what they want. That is the worst thing I think that you could possibly do to a reader, is give them cookie cutter storyline that they are going to get a third of the way through the book and go, oh, I figured it all out. I needed to give them something that was going to make them think, that was going to make them shudder, that was going to make them question reality, question belief, and question history. And as I went through this, that was one of the things that I kept getting the hate mail on is, why are you doing this to me? Why are you torturing me this way? Or at the conclusion of the book, when they send the messages going, I can't stop thinking about Ethan or Colin or Maggie or any of the characters in this book. I can't stop. It's driving me nuts. 3-4 days later, and I'm still haunted by this. I'm still having dreams and nightmares about this. And then some people just simply asking, how evil is your mind? And I take those all as compliments. I really do. That was the object behind it. The object of this was to get people to go on an amazing wild ride, go along with the characters in this story, and don't have a clue what's going to happen. And even when they do, and there are parts in here that are almost gives, telltale signs, and they go, aha! And you get to that section and absolutely nail what they expected, and then we absolutely turn it on its side. We flip it in such a way that they turn around afterwards and go, I didn't see that coming. And we had to do that almost all the way to the very last few words of because it's almost like a written out screenplay visually, that this is how I saw it in my mind. And I needed to be entertained before I could give this to any reader. I needed to be shocked before I could give this to any reader. I needed to laugh and cry with this before I could give this to any reader. And the first guinea pig, unfortunately, was Andrea, as she went through this, and the struggles and the pain and the tears in some of the sections of this. And she knew the story, but seeing it and going through it and living it time and time again tore her apart. There are parts in there that are still for me. Every time I get to that part, I get choked up.
Oh.
But I mean, our readers have come back saying it's changed me. It's changed me permanently. That just, those are resounding reviews for me. That just to me makes me feel so good that they enjoyed this work.
George, when you wrote the first book, did you know that you were going to write a second book?
No. When I first began, no. As I got through into this, yes. Actually, Andrea and I had countless hours of brainstorming because even though the general outline, which is pretty much what you had gotten from us, the general outline of this story never changed, but development within it, some of the locations, the characters, the interaction had to change. There's something in there. The only thing that I can put in there, and I'm giving one thing away. I can't believe I'm doing this. It's probably freaking Andrea out right now. But we were in a road trip. I believe that this road trip was going to Rhode Island. And we came up with the 7 stages of fear, not grief. And it was just awe-inspiring. But we did a lot of this throughout that. And as we were developing, we're talking about the character development, we were seeing potentials for each and every one of these characters for future books. So that's where it came down to deciding if this book is going to explode on the scene, and in 6 weeks, the way it's done already, I know that people are going to be blown away. And the next one is bigger and badder than this one is. So when you guys get a chance to get this book and get it down and read it, you'll be prepared and you'll understand what I'm talking about when book 2 comes out, hopefully in the fall of 2016. First of all, you'll be chomping at the bit for it to come out, number one. Number two, you're going to wind up at that point in time going, I thought that this first book was going to be the most over the top. How could they top this?
Oh my God.
Let's see.
So the ending of the first book, did you end it right at that on that book, or did you make it like insinuating that there's more to come?
I don't know.
Oh,
Don't tell her, George. Don't tell her. Don't tell her. No, I love the woman, but I'm not giving her anything here. Nothing.
Well, because the reader, they're going to want to know: is there going to be a second book? What's happening? Is there more to come?
Yes,
there
is.
I will say this, and Andrew and I have talked about this on A World Awakening, only because of its relevance. It was frightening. We've talked about since the onset, since the inception of putting this pen to paper, this story, that cosmic forces were aligned, that things were happening and still happening in and surrounding this story, in this book. Well, one of the things I can tell you about a very important, certainly not an ancillary character, but a very important character in this story is an existing facility on this planet. And when I began writing this story and implementing this particular location, it was in a dormant period. There was nothing going on at the time. And then all of a sudden, they started back up again. So I had to scramble in the midst of this book, in the midst of sending the raw manuscript to Andrea, updating parts of this because things were happening right then and there. And I'm like, oh, how am I going to add this together? How am I going to put this? But it all worked out. It was supposed to happen. This introduction was supposed to happen. And the place I'm talking about wound up on a huge story on 60 Minutes about a month ago. And what we're talking about is the Large Hadron Collider in CERN, Switzerland. it's a very important aspect of this story. And that was just my panic mode, along with a few dozen other things that I would be sending messages to Andrea on Facebook going, we're done. We're done. They're gonna kill the story. They're going to ruin it. This is coming out. That's coming out. And she's like, relax, George. And usually it's the other way around. She's the one that gets into that. You want relax, Annie. But for this, I'm sitting there going, what the hell are you going to throw at us next, Cosmos? And Andrew was right. It didn't have any bearing, any effect on it whatsoever.
Well, it did, in that every single thing, every cosmic kiss that came down the pike when he went into total meltdown mode, and I said, George, relax. It is preparing the ground for flicker. Preparing the ground for flicker. Over and over and over. I don't know how many times it happened, Noreen, that something would come out in the national or the international news that had direct relevance to the story, direct bearing on the story. And he would just freak. Like, why are we even doing this? Why are we wasting our time? This has all been, oh my God. And he's right. It usually is the other way around. I'm the one that gets flustered, and he's the one that talks me off the ledge routinely. And yet when it came to this story, we did a unique role reversal. And he would call me in a panic, or, Skype, you up? Skype now. Right? I don't know how many times it happened. And yes, I was always up, and yes, it was Skype now, at which point I had to talk him off the ledge and explain to him over and over again that everything happens with purpose and reason in its right and proper time. Everything. It's not just a tagline. It's not just a bumper sticker. It's the truth. And all I needed for him to do was just have faith in the process and have faith in me. And I think that eventually he did.
Wow.
So, there was nothing in the core of the story that was actively going on in the news. Nothing.
Nothing. When we start.
In some cases, we're talking about over a long period of time, nothing was going on. And then all of a sudden, again, as if it was just being sprinkled everywhere, it was just a tease to go, we're aware of what's going on. We're conscious of what you are writing, what you're doing, what you're putting together. Again, it was just one of those things where didn't know what that was supposed to mean, if it was supposed to be something beneficial or something that was going to be detrimental. And it certainly was not detrimental.
We even, at one point in the book, George sent me a little news release that had come out that day when he was in, it was minor meltdown mode that day. He was, not really over the edge, but, and I said, well, George, let's include it in the book. And he's like, oh, yeah, we'll just include it in the book. I said, do you know what chapter it needs to go in? And he's like, yeah. I said, go put it in the book. From Vox.com, which is, one of those geeky scientific mags. And, we actually quoted it, put it right in the book.
Wow.
Because it had such relevance to what we were writing about and what was happening with, in Satigny, Switzerland.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that research was fun.
I'm so glad I didn't have to do that. My brain would have exploded. I was busy just trying to wrap it around the storyline. He was the one coming up with all, research. Oh my God, if you ever went back through our private feed, whether it be on Facebook or email or Skype, we literally were attached at the hip for 18 solid months of working on this. And then, bless his heart, I was traveling. Sometimes he was traveling with me. We'd work on it. God worked on it last year in San Antonio while we were at the Black Swan Inn over the Halloween and Dia de los Muertos event. I worked on it while I was up in Michigan in August. We worked on it on the way back and forth from Rhode Island for the Ocean State Paracon. It literally became a part of our lives. It became a part of us. And there was really never a time that we weren't either thinking about it or discussing it or sharing things, adding things. You know, George with this machete cutting out all my beautiful words. You know, honest to God, but it ultimately resolved in that it came out to be, I think, and I'm, you know, speaking humbly and speaking really in homage to him, a beautiful piece of literature, true literature, interactive literature. You can't read this book and be unaffected by it. I don't think that's possible. Not if you're a human being with a heart, a mind, and a soul. You can't be unaffected by it.
Now, you're calling it a novel rather than a book. So what's the difference?
Well, it's a very fascinating and interesting conglomeration of fact and fiction. We can't call it nonfiction, even though there are huge elements of it that are literally pulled from the annals of history. I mean, quite literally from historical record. But the characters that we intermingled with the actual factual history are fictional characters. So it's both. In the same way, you know, all the times I've interviewed with you, Noreen, and I say House of Darkness, House of Light, because it was both. This is the same thing. And we kind of, in the writing of it, we became as enmeshed with each other in mind about this as the characters, the fictional characters, became enmeshed in the nonfiction storyline. So we were teasing each other the other day, and he's like, "Yeah, you're the yin to my yang," you know. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the other side of your coin," flip, you know. I mean, because we really, I mean, it was. I had never collaborated on anything with anyone in my life. I have been very solitary as a writer, and in fact, almost reclusive as a writer. I want peace and quiet. I don't want interaction. I don't want someone else's opinion. I just want to put down what I need to put down precisely the way that I know that I need to put it down, and there it is. So I had to make this huge personal adjustment to share as openly with George as I did my own process. He learned tremendous things from me. I learned tremendous things from him. This being his first venture as a writer, with him all along kicking and screaming, saying, "I'm not a writer, I'm not a writer," with me saying, "George, you have complete command of this language. Don't tell me you're not a writer. Put it down. I don't care how it comes out. Put it down. If I have to, you know, fix this or fix that, or, you know, be consistent with the tenses and, you know, all of that, big deal. That's nothing. You know, let's put this together." And so his initial experience, foray into being an author or writer, was decidedly different than my experience. So I had to make huge adjustments, much, I think, larger than he did. And I had to learn that in collaboration, I can't just take the manuscript, work like a maniac on it for, you know, a solid week on one chapter, think that I've got it absolutely perfect the way I envision it in my mind, and then turn it back over to him and him say, "Nope, gotta go, hate it, absolutely not, we're not going in that direction with this character, gone, slash, burn." I mean, can you imagine? You know me. Can you even imagine the emotional reaction that I had to that?
Yeah.
How many times I said, "Okay, work session over, gotta go, good night," you know, and ears are like, oh my God, and I can't talk because I literally cannot verbalize how upset I am that I thought I did this remarkable, incredible work. And he said, nope, not going that way with this. You know, so it was a real learning curve for me. And I can say after the fact that he was absolutely right on every single front, that I managed to, in my contribution to the novel, I was able to retain what my readers from the trilogy identify me as someone who writes lyrically, who, you know, uses language masterfully and in a beautiful way. And yet there was an ugly story to tell here. And so it is both. It's beautiful and it's ugly. It's darkness and it's light. It's good and it's evil. It's everything, all wrapped up in one novel called In a Flicker.
All right, I heard it, I read that it was labeled a science fiction thriller. Is that what the book would be labeled? What category?
I would put dashes in between those.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's science, it's fiction, and it's a thriller. It's all three, but
Yeah.
separate and distinct, as Andrea says. I will tell you this, and your listeners in the chat right now can go to it after the show. They can click on the page right now, inaflickernovel.com. But on the main page, up at the top right-hand corner, it says "Watch the promo," and I encourage you to do the same thing, Noreen.
I did, honey. I did. I watched it last night.
Good.
Oh yeah, and then that song. Now, why did you pick that song?
Search and search and search. You know, my background in music is so extensive, and I'm one of those people that when I'm watching a motion picture, I listen to that music, and I listen to, you know, John Williams is one of my biggest heroes. I think he's just brilliant in what he had done over 4.5 decades, and what he's contributed to out there. I love music, so I needed to find something that was going to kind of really express the story in the background of this little promo. What's even funnier, and only a few privileged so far, but there's always this little gift that I give to those who will do a full-on post-read interview with Andrea and I, because we want to pick the brain and see again, you know, are there consistencies in the character opinions, in the story opinions, things of that sort. Once we're done, there is an extra video that I had done amidst the middle of this story. I think at the times that it was handed to Andrea and she was doing her work, her embellishment on this story, that I had this time to do this, and I would create this video with an amazing song that was, the music video was published back in 2008, and the song is called Flicker by a wonderful band called Paper Beat Scissors. And I discovered it one night, and just this last summer. Never heard of the band, never heard of the song. Just this last summer, I'm just scrolling through YouTube, and I find this song, and I watch this video, and I go, oh, cosmic forces, God, you. What they did was indicative of this story to a T.
To a T, like it was written in '08 for a book that had not been written yet. I mean, that is, I think it, I consider it one of my very favorite songs. I think it is a magnificent video and a magnificent piece of music. And George, I mean, really, did I cry? Did I cry when I saw that? I couldn't even talk after I saw it. I couldn't believe that it even existed out in the world. Amazing.
Wow.
Cried during a Publix Christmas commercial. What are you talking about?
I do, that's true. Well, you know they're so tender and sweet, George. Dog food commercials. I used to have a dog that looked just like that. Oh. Hey, I'll never have glaucoma. There's no pressure in my ocular nerve.
Oh gosh. So is there anything else you guys want to talk about the book?
No.
Okay, well, let's see. I've put your pictures up there. I put the book up there. I've got your website up there with the URL, and on your website, you have many locations for them to purchase this book, and
Yes.
they can purchase it right off your website.
Yeah, and I want to encourage the people. I have a lot of readers in the UK, and I keep jabbing them, like, do you dare peek into your own history? Here, get this: Amazon.com UK, AuthorHouse.com UK. Because it's out there, and this is I have my personal history. Part of my ancestry is from England. I have original members of my extended family on my mother's side that died in the 1500s, buried in Sheffield, England. Out of a family of 7 people, one of them came to the colonies in the 1700s or late 1600s and became part of my mother's lineage. I have an ancestral connection that is profound to England. And, I'm constantly on them, like, get this out, please share, please share. If you dare peek into your own sordid past, share this and get this out all over England, because even though it's selling very well in the United States, we want to make sure that we get it where its home is. We worked very diligently, especially with our friend Nikki Salat, who's a British lady from London. Well, ladies kind of using the term loosely based on her mouth, but
Andrea.
Just to make sure that we got the terminology correct. I mean, she helped us. She was the one that said, "Don't you change a thing about this book." And yet, she did find a couple of things. In our descriptions of England, we had used the word block, for instance, to describe sections of streets in a city. And she said, "We don't use that word." I said, "Well, what do you use?" And she said, "Streets, avenues, roads, but, you only have blocks in the United States. We don't use that word over there." So we had to go into the manuscript, and George figured out, bless his heart, how to use the program that we were using, to such an extent that all he did was do a search on them, and we came up that we had, I think it was 18 throughout the entire manuscript, that we had used the word block to describe streets or the movement down streets. And so we had to go meticulously through the manuscript and change that everywhere that it was. And it was that kind of attention to detail, Noreen, that people seem to, avid readers really seem to appreciate. Are there a couple of little glitches in it? Yes. When the time comes, we'll pull it down for a few days and fix them and put it back up. Because we were working on an incredibly tight timeline in order to get it out, because we wanted to introduce it at the Undead Con in New Orleans.
Yeah.
We both had our hearts set on premiering it there. And we had it in time. And if there's one little thing or two little things that we have to change later, we can pull it down for a couple of days, fix them, and put it right back up. But it's as close to perfect as I think you'll find in any book on the market today.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a true labor of love. It was. That's the tagline that I use with it, because that's an accurate description of what the book is.
I wish you so much success on this, and like I said, everybody's talking about it. The reviews are amazing, and then to have a movie already that they're talking about making a movie out of it is unbelievable. I don't think that's ever happened to anybody that fast.
I don't either. I really don't. It's really kind of amazing. I mean, even, the producer that I've been working with was like, you're not going to shop this around, are you? Why? You want to make an offer now? And they're just devouring it.
Now, are you going to write the screenplay for this movie as well?
Not me.
Oh,
I would never. No, all my attention is strictly on the trilogy.
Okay.
Because that's what I know from the depths of my being. George will work with my screenwriter eventually. In fact, I'm going to introduce the two of them tomorrow on this magical thing we call Skype. And she's out in California, and wonderful, wonderful woman. Absolutely like a kindred spirit, a soul sister to me. Instant connection that we had. I don't know what it is about you California chicks. It's something. It is. And so I'm going to be working with her exclusively on developing the manuscript, the screenplay for all three books of the trilogy. But George has a very clear, concise vision of what he wants In a Flicker to be on film. In the same way, I possess that clear, concise vision for the trilogy. So he'll work with her on Flicker. I'll work with her on the trilogy, and that way I don't have to work with him for a while.
Oh my God! Will your movie and In a Flicker come out at about the same time, or will they spread them apart?
I don't know. I mean, one would not reflect on the other. They're two separate, distinct entities.
Right.
So, we'll see how that comes to pass, but I will tell you this, Ms. Bailovich.
Yes.
When we know, you'll know.
Oh, wow.
I mean, how many times have I saved stuff up and premiered it on your show?
I know.
And there's a reason for that, because when no one on the planet knew who I was, you contacted me and offered to put me out there with my first volume of House of Darkness, House of Light, and no one knew there was a Conjuring coming. No one knew who I was, or that our story had ever even existed, because we had kept it so quiet for 30 years. And you gave me my first national exposure, and there was an instant connection between us. And so you get all dibs. You do. George, did you want to say something? Your little box is lighting.
Did you give me the title to the show tonight? You gave me the title. Why did you give me that title?
Because in the same way that it was... in the same way that the trilogy expands human consciousness, how when you read those three books, you never think about anything the same way again. The human mind, once expanded, cannot contract. And even though I didn't realize it at the beginning with In a Flicker, it serves exactly the same purpose, and yet it comes from a decidedly different perspective. And, as I said earlier, it is the darkness, it is the light. We are, Noreen, you know this, I've talked to you personally plenty about this. We are at a crossroads in human consciousness now. And I really do believe that we are, as a race, at a make or break point. It doesn't mean that we're going to blow ourselves up tomorrow, or that we're all going to be saved tomorrow. But we are at a crossroads in human consciousness and in our existence on this planet. And I think that the reason that Flicker is such an important contribution to the cause is because it does force your mind wide open. It does make you think differently about everything, not just the subject of the book, about everything. And you know as well as George does, that my lectures, I don't talk about little things. I talk about big things. I talk about universal concepts. I talk about philosophy and theology and human emotion at its rawest. I speak with contempt about those that victimize the innocent on this planet. I can't help it. I am a spiritual warrior, and I was born one. I was born into that role, and I serve a purpose on this plane of action. And so does George. So does George. And in our coming together, I think that it was a really powerful union. And, you know, we're not gentle about it with people, even though I write beautifully and lyrically and so on and so forth. You know what people tell me all the time. I force them to look at themselves, to, you know, peer deeply into their own souls, to examine their own consciousness from within as without. And George has accomplished exactly the same thing by bringing this story that he had in mind out into the world. I'm so proud that I was able to be a part of that, but it really does serve the same purpose. And that is that there is, you know, a wave of consciousness raising going. Changed. The world has changed. And the reason that I wanted to talk about expanding consciousness tonight was because of George harboring this story in his own mind for 25 years, and then it exploded out of him. I harbored our story for 30 years, and it exploded out of me, albeit a little more slowly than Flicker did. But ultimately, everything finds its time and its place in the cosmos. And you know, I think that one of the things that we need to consider and we need to talk about, you know, as a community in the paranormal, but also as in terms of race consciousness, is where are we going? What are we doing? When you expand your thought process, when your mind expands, not your brain, when your mind expands, when you expand your thought process into cosmic consciousness, it changes the world, because thoughts are things. Everything that exists in our three-dimensional, five-sensory plane of action began as a thought. Everything. As a concept, as an invention, as some part of our imagination. And then we create it from our mind into our world. And that's what George did within a flicker. And it's changing people in profound ways. It's changing people in ways that they can't even express, that they can't really even come to terms to yet. I mean, we're literally counseling some of our readers at the end of it. You know, breathe, just let it sink in, let it slowly sink in by osmosis. Just, you know, put it aside. If you get, you know, we've had readers that have gotten to certain chapters and said, I have to walk away from this right now. I can't do this right now. I just can't, you know, and they'll reach out to one or both of us and say, you know, this is too intense. I have to stop here. I have to stop. And we give them the advice, let it sink in. If you're ready, when you're ready, go back. And they inevitably do. And at the end of it, as they extricate themselves from this novel, they're all saying exactly the same thing. This blew my mind wide open. Now, there's a lot of fluff and stuff out there for books. You can go into any Walgreens and get any piece of garbage you want off the magazine rack, and it's great to keep in the bathroom next to the commode. This isn't that. This is different. And it does expand human consciousness and awareness. And one thing that I do say, and I'll let George speak to this shortly, but one thing that I do tell people at the end of the book, go back and reread the dedication. And then tell me, how you have changed from when you read that dedication, when you opened the book, to when you revisited that dedication at the end of the book. What's different now? And the answer that we routinely get is everything is different now. Everything. And that's why I sent you the title that I wanted to discuss, on the show tonight, Expanding Human Consciousness. And it's not just Flicker, and it's not just House of Darkness, House of Light. Our consciousness is expanding exponentially at a remarkably rapid rate right now. The world is changing. It's like as if it's spinning off its axis. There is so much going on. There is the darkness, there is the light, there is the intermingling of the two. We are starting to understand that one cannot exist without the other, and yet ultimately good always conquers evil, or none of us would be here anymore. If evil had its way in the world, our existence would have already been obliterated.
Wow. Yes, Andrea. Holy cow. I love having you on the show. I mean, oh my God, you're so brilliant. I just love it. George, you're quiet.
Talk about the ETs.
Well, George will probably want to go to bed.
Hopefully George doesn't. George might have already gone
to bed. You still there, George?
I'm right here.
Well.
Anyway, you too. Oh my God, I adore both of you. You're so awesome, and oh my gosh, I don't think you're of this world, either one of you.
I just realized something too. Here she is trying to get us to give away parts of this story to give them, the inside track. And meanwhile, just below the video, she's got the entire synopsis of the book. You sneaky woman.
Oh, I copied that off of your. Do you want me to take that? I copied that.
No,
you guys. Hey, wait a minute, George. That was on the web. That's public knowledge.
He's just, he's just tormenting you, honey. Don't fall for him. Don't fall for any of it. I mean, I did several years ago, and I'm still trying to extricate myself. So don't fall into the George Lopez, stand-up comedian of the paranormal school. Don't, because you'll go right into the deep end. I'm telling you.
I don't know him that well. Thank you so much. Oh my God, I'm so excited for both of you. I can't wait till the movies come out. Andrea, when your story comes out of the true haunting of the Perron family, it will be bigger than The Conjuring. It will be bigger. And George's story, nobody's going to believe it. If somebody has not written that, read your book, the both of you, and they see it on screen, they're not going to believe it. They're going to walk out of that showroom, out of the movie house with their mouths open. They're not going to believe it. I'm telling you, you guys, you have to get the book. It's the story, from what I was told, and I am going to read the book, the storyline I don't know how anybody could come up with something like that. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. See you. F Warrior, hope you come back. And I'll see you guys all next week, okay? Thank you so much. I love you guys, and thank you. Good night, okay? Be safe. Have a great week.